Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to our College Admission 101 Part 1 in-state webinar. And we at Alabama Possible, we understand that many students and their families, they struggle navigating the college admissions process. So today, college admission officers from in-state institutions will share what they are looking for in an application, including personal statements, transcripts, and extracurricular activities. The panel also includes a financial aid specialist to answer any questions you might have. So before we start, we would like to thank all our sponsors, because without their confidence in us, without their support, we would not have been able to provide a lot of the services that we provide to all of you. And without our partners' support, of course, we would be nowhere in this area of work. So we would like to thank Alabama Commission on Higher Education, Alabama Community College System, and Alabama State Department of Education for collaborating with us in providing all the initiatives that we do. So a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your microphones on mute at all times to avoid feedback while speakers are speaking. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, and a recording will be sent to all of you who have registered in the follow-up email. And if you have any questions, please submit it throughout the webinar using the chat feature, and we'll come back to it at the end of the panel discussion. So we are on social media. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, TikTok. Please follow us. Our handle is at AL Goes to College, and use these hashtags anytime you post anything regarding FAFSA completion or college application or college signing day. So, and especially using hashtags as Pell Yes and hashtag FAFSA, hashtag Better Make Room. Those give you some kind of national coverage also from time to time. So yeah, I started out this morning saying I do not have issues usually with technology, but of course I do today. So anyway, so this is our 2021-2022 Alabama Goes to College campaign, and most of the high schools, I think we have over 350 high schools who have registered for this campaign. And anybody who hasn't, we encourage you to go ahead and register, because this campaign will equip, through this campaign, we equip high school educators with tools and connect them to relationships so that all of their students can plan for, pursue, and complete valuable post-secondary credentials. We also provide resources to students and families to explore college options, to find financial aid resources, and successfully transition from high school to college. So there are three components to this campaign. The first one is Cash for College, which is FAFSA completion. The second one is Alabama College Application Week, and it is a week where all colleges in and around Alabama waive off their application fees to encourage more and more students to apply to college. And then we have the College and Career Decision Day, when we celebrate all our seniors, no matter what decision they make, whether they want to go to a 2-year college, a 4-year college, whether they want to go for a certificate or industry recognized credential, military, or if they want to pursue a skilled trade. So we celebrate all our students. So as most of you know, if not all, Governor Ivey has declared FAFSA completion, October as FAFSA completion month in Alabama. So why post-secondary education? We need to look at why is it important for students to go into post-secondary education. So as far as the word post-secondary is concerned, we think of post-secondary education as any kind of education beyond high school. Like I mentioned, whether it's a 2-year, whether it's a 4-year, whether it is going into any kind of credentials, we consider all that as post-secondary education. So as per this resource, we found this resource with Alabama Education and Training Outlook occupational projections. So they have prepared, this report was prepared by Alabama Department of Labor and Labor Market Information Division. So they say that in 2018, only 33% of jobs were in occupations that typically require post-secondary education for entry. But within this group, jobs in occupations which require a bachelor's degree for entry held the largest share at 56%. So occupations requiring a high school diploma equivalent and less than high school made up 67% of jobs in 2018. So in 2018, we had 67% of the jobs which anybody with a high school diploma or equivalent could get at the entry level. However, jobs in occupations requiring a form of post-secondary education for entry level will grow faster during the projected period, which is 2018 to 2028. So if you all will look over here, there will be no formal educational credential will increase only by 4.1%. High school diploma equivalent will be will increase by 3.4%, and then some college no degree will be only by 0.6%. But if you look at the rest of it, all this is going to have high increases. So that is why it is very important and pertinent that we prepare our students and ensure that they are ready for workforce getting those post-secondary education. So the next one is the 2020 median annual wages by education. So if you see occupations over here, occupations typically requiring an associate's degree and above pay wages higher than the average for the total all occupations of, so the average median earning over here is 34,798. And you will see that anybody that is from some post-secondary non-degree award upwards, they earn higher wages. So doctoral and professional degree jobs reported having the highest average wages in 2020, followed by master's degree and bachelor's degree jobs respectively. So no formal educational credential occupations you'll see over here, they reported the lowest falling 5,083 below the average wage. So again, this again points out the importance of post-secondary education. So Alabama College Application Week is from October 18th through 22nd, that is next week. This is the week, like I mentioned, during this week, all colleges in and around Alabama, they will be waiving off their application fees. And the list of the colleges participating is in our toolkit on our website. And we will send you a link to it also in the follow-up email. These are some of the resources which we wanted to share. One is Alabama Goes to College Educators Toolkit. It is again available on our website and under Alabama Goes to College section. And we have Educators Handbook. We have a handbook for students and families, just touching on the important points that are needed for the college going process. And then of course we have a help desk. Anybody can call our help desk at 334-316-6155 if they have any questions regarding the college going process. So if you have any questions as we are having a panel discussions, please feel free to drop them in the chat like I mentioned earlier. And our facilitator, Keela Lawrence, who's the programs and communications coordinator at Alabama Possible, will get to the questions after the panel discussion. Now I would like to invite all our panelists to introduce themselves, and I will call in the name that they appear on my screen. So Dr. Perry, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Victoria Perry. I work here at Bishop State Community College out of Mobile, Alabama. Currently, I'm working in a division of student development services as a counselor. But today I just wanted to share with you all our admissions process, which is a 5-step process. First, prospective students will need to submit their application electronically. And after they submit that application, they should receive a response within 24 to 48 hours. One thing good about our admissions process, we have an open door policy, which means that we were taking high school graduates as well as non-graduates. So if we have a student that is interested in one of our programs, such as nursing and PTA, there are some admissions restrictions. So what we try to do is bring them into the college, through the open door policy and help them to get rid of some of those efficiencies so they'll be able to apply to our nursing and PTA program. The second step in our admissions process is to apply for FAFSA early as possible. I would encourage those students, if they apply for FAFSA, to call the institution or give Bishop State Financial Aid a call within 3 weeks after applying to see if we received it. And if we hadn't received your package from the Department of Education, give Bishop a call and we will find out what the issue is. Normally, the institution should receive it, I say no more than 3 weeks after you apply. And if they hadn't, then something is wrong on your end. The third step in our process is to take the placement test. If a student has a 17 or higher on the ACT, they are exempt from that test. The placement test is only an indicator to tell us where the student is far as math and English, the level of math and the level of English. And the fourth and fifth step of our admission process, once you complete steps 1 through 3, we will assign an advisor to you. That advisor will set you up for orientation as well as registration. So I hope I made that 2-minute threshold. So I want to say welcome and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Taylor Hillier from Alabama Community College System. Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Hillier, and I work as the Financial Aid and Student Engagement Coordinator for the Alabama Community College System. In my role, we support all 24 of our colleges across the state of Alabama in the area of student success. So anything from admissions to financial aid, student engagement, and compliance, anything like that across the board that encompasses or includes students getting into our colleges. We kind of support all 24 of the colleges across the state. We are very unique. Like I said, we have 24 colleges across the state of Alabama and more than 130 locations across the state. So some of our colleges have satellite campuses as well as instructional sites. So basically, we like to say we're right in your back door, you know, from north, south, east, west. We're right there to support you. We offer a ton of options for students for the students who want to transfer to 4-year. Maybe the student just wants to get a credential and get in the workforce and go straight to work. We offer night, day, weekend, virtual, as well as hybrid options in all of the different programs. We also offer some short credential programs that are like 8 weeks long. So maybe there's that student that just needs to, you know, get a little something to get to work, if that's what they want to do. We offer those options, as well as GED help through our adult education programs. We are also there to help you all with any type of recruiting event you have, from admission staff, from our recruiters, financial aid, for your FAFSA nights, anything like that. We have the people and we are willing to serve you and help you. So all you have to do is just reach out to your local community college and we will be there to support you in helping your students get to school.
Thank you, Taylor. Next, Carl Collins from Northwest Shoals Community College.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carl Collins. I'm the Director of Enrollment for Northwest Shoals Community College, and we're just very excited that you're able to be with us this morning and being able to have or take part in this conversation. So important. I want to say that our process is very much like what Ms. Perry shared with you. We are very much that, you know, we follow those basic 5 steps. You know, I think what I want to do is just take a minute to put some emphasis on the career technical education, you know, and I know that Taylor, you know, touched on that, but that certainly is one of the other areas that I think we're seeing in the community college sector is just a wonderful opportunity for our students to come in and to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. I think the other thing we're real excited about, and I've had an opportunity to be very involved with, is we are bringing on in the Alabama Community College System a new customer relationship management program that is just going to really enhance, you know, that applicant experience, that individual that just wants to reach out to us, find out a little bit of information. It's just going to make the communication process all the way through so much more effective, which means for the students that you're servicing, you know, you'll see them being able to, if they're reaching out to a community college within the state, you'll just see that response and that communication, I believe, being so much more effective. And I think in doing so, really helping them to get the information that they require. But as far as the admission process, like I said, ours is very, very much the same as what Ms. Perry shared with you. So again, very excited to be here and looking forward to sharing more information with you.
Thank you. Next is Anna Walton from University of Alabama.
Good morning, everyone. As Carl said, I'm very excited that you all are here. I am with the University of Alabama. I'm a regional recruiter for undergraduate admissions. Through the process of enrollment at Alabama, we have changed the application in the past. It used to be more of a biographical information application. This year, we have incorporated the scholarship application with our application all in one. So the first step to enrollment is for the student to fill out that application and really take time on what we refer to as the resume portion. And then the FAFSA, obviously, as quickly as possible is also our goal for students. And after the application is submitted, students typically receive a response within a few days, but it is, the process is a lot more involved this year. So students are seeing a little bit more of a wait time. Our priority deadlines are to have the ACT completed for scholarship consideration by the December 15th deadline. And the January 15th is for merit scholarships, and we can go over all of that as well in depth later. The other thing that is important to note is housing deadlines and orientation deadlines that we'll go over. But our goal is to have students have their information ready for their application. We are participating in Free Application Week and all of that. We communicate via the Slate CRM, so we're tracking students and taking care of all of the strategic communication there. I'm very excited to speak more on our enrollment process and anything I can help with in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Next is Andrew Coulson from University of Alabama at Birmingham.
Well, hey, everyone. My name is Andrew Coulson. I'm the Associate Director of In-State Recruitment for UAB. And I primarily recruit Birmingham City schools as well as some other local schools in Jefferson County, then all homeschool students in the state of Alabama. And so our process is fairly similar to UA's in that we do have a separate application at uab.edu/apply. And that is typically a 4-step process, a 3-step process if you are applying as a test optional student. So basically what that means is we would need an application on file from the application website, just taking some biographical information from you. We do have a $40 application fee that can be waived if you, for one, apply next week during Free Application Week, or if you do qualify for free reduced lunch or have received an ACT fee waiver in the past. You just have to have your counselor submit that proof of waiver to us at any point when you apply. And then we also would require a transcript directly from your high school. And so that would have to be sent in by a high school official to be considered an official document. Now, I mentioned there's a 4-step process, but 3-step if you're test optional. So in case you don't know what test optional is basically an option to forego sending in the test for consideration for admissions as well as scholarships. So UAB for this group of seniors graduating 2022 is a test optional school. And so if you do apply without test scores, we'll review you based on your GPA as well as your strength of curriculum. That's how many higher levels are offered at your school and how many you took advantage of and how well you did in those. If you do want to apply with test scores included, we would need those submitted either via your transcript or via the testing agency directly. And those would be sent in typically once you take the test or after those test results become available and you send it on after the fact. So it's a pretty quick process. Once we have all the information in, within about 2 to 3 weeks, your admissions decision, we send out both an emailed confirmation as well as a mailed letter admissions packet on your next steps. We do have a separate scholarship application we just introduced this year too, that does take into account both qualitative as well as quantitative data as far as your GPA and test scores are concerned, but also has basically a personal statement. You can kind of consider it an essay of what your academic goals are and your professional goals are. That's through our B-Smart system. And so it is basically a two-pronged process for those big things. You would then have an enrollment checklist at uab.edu/mychecklist where you can go in to create your Blazer ID, register for orientation, submit your enrollment deposit, and apply for housing, which will open up on November 1st as well. So that's in a quick nutshell our application process. And we do have a FAFSA submission priority deadline of December 1st as well. So be sure you are submitting that in a timely manner.
Thank you, Andrew. Our last but not least panelist is Julie Taylor from University of North Alabama.
Hey everyone, my name is Julie Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Admissions here at the University of North Alabama. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to us talk about our admissions process. So UNA is a fairly simple process. Students can apply online. We are waiving our application fee forever. So please encourage your students to go ahead and apply now before free application week so they can get priority on getting their applications processed. Other than that, we just require a high school transcript. We are also test optional for admission purposes. So for admission, we just require a 2.5 high school GPA. So we just need the student to send their high school transcript to us. Scholarship wise, our priority deadline for scholarships is February 1st. So students can take the ACT through the February test, even though it's past that deadline for scholarship purposes. We will award scholarships to students with or without an ACT score. So scholarships with an ACT score start at a 20 and a 3.0 high school GPA. And then we also have some scholarships just based off of high school GPA, and those start at a 3.0 high school GPA. So a student is not penalized for their ACT score, whatever it might be. They can still receive scholarships to UNA. And then we do have some unique scholarships that we're offering at UNA for fall of 22 programmatic. One is our CSIS, so students interested in computer science, CIS, or information technology. It's a pretty lucrative scholarship that will pay for up to everything, tuition fees, room and board. We also have an engineering and technology scholarship and an accounting scholarship for fall of 22. So if any students are interested in those particular majors, I would encourage them to apply. That application is a part of their application to UNA, so they don't have to apply separately. We also have some unique scholarships around bass fishing and esports. So if you have any students interested in our club sports at UNA, they can also receive a scholarship for that. So look forward to interacting with you all today. And if you have any specific questions for me, I'll be glad to answer those. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. So now, Keela, it's all over to you.
Thanks so much, Manisha. I am so excited to be here. I have some questions on deck for everyone. Just a reminder for our participants, our attendees, we do have questions lined up, but if you have any specific questions for any of our panelists, please feel free to send them in the chat. We want to make sure we answer all of your questions, and so that you are prepared for next week when your students are applying to all these colleges and for weeks after while they're still applying. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Our first question is going to go to Anna. Once a student is accepted for enrollment, what are the next steps? And I will say, if anyone has any nuances to add to Anna's, please feel free to do so.
Yes, so once students are accepted for enrollment, once they're admitted, the next step would be to pay both the enrollment and housing deposits, and then to apply for priority housing, which our priority housing registration is open now. It's a first come, first served basis. A lot of those students are very interested in where they're going to live. So they are time-stamped from the time that they apply for housing. And then in May is when the room selection begins, and they will just go down the line from the first student and go on down to be able to select their room. The enrollment deposit is also required after that to secure their spot. It is important to note that the NACAC fee waiver covers our application fee, enrollment deposit, and a percentage of the housing deposit. So that is something that is important to note for students as well. And then following the deposits, the next step is to register for what we call Bama Bound orientation. And the registration for that will come in the spring. So there's a lot of, I like to call it hurry up and wait. There's a lot to do right now in the fall. And then we have students that are, anxious to hear what is to be done next. And there's a lot of waiting around until the spring rolls around for those next deadlines. However, students are able to take the ACT and or SAT again and submit those scores after they have been admitted, as long as they're meeting those priority deadlines. For our competitive scholarships, that is December 15th. They have to be both admitted and have their test scores submitted, the December test being the last one. And our merit scholarships is January 15th is the date for that. So those are kind of their next steps.
Perfect, perfect. Did anyone have any variations from that? I don't know if anybody has anything else to add.
The one thing I'd add to that, at least, when you talk about accepted, I think it's important for counselors to know that they may have a student that's been told that they've been accepted, or that the student said, hey, I've been accepted. And it's important for that counselor to know that a student can be conditionally accepted, and then they can be unconditionally accepted, at least I know with our situation. And what that typically means, the difference between the two when you talk about accepted, is for us, conditionally accepted means we at least have a copy of their ID. Unconditionally accepted means we now also have their ID and their official transcript. So a lot of times what we are waiting on, and you as counselors really help us out with a lot, is making sure that we eventually get that official transcript that now takes that student and makes them unconditionally accepted and allows them to just continue on with the enrollment process.
That was a great point. So my next question is for Victoria. Are schools postponing their scholarship deadlines later in the year like they did like the previous year due to COVID?
Our scholarships are open until they all gone. We do have a priority deadline, a priority date. They will open up probably the latter part of November, and the priority deadline is June 1st. But we keep those scholarships open until they all are awarded. So we encourage them when they submit their application to continue. And I want to piggyback on what Carl had mentioned. A lot of our students, when they apply to the college, they just apply. They don't go back and check their emails or check their personal emails, but we have to get them used to checking that email, because that's our only form of communication. Once they are admitted to the college and set up for enrollment, they need to check their email, because scholarship information goes out. If they extend the scholarship dates, all that is done through the email. But again, our scholarships are open until they all are awarded. We do have students that apply after priority date, which is fine. So I encourage them to apply, even though the date is cut off, just still apply, because some students may decline the scholarship as well.
Perfect. So Carl, I'm going to throw it back to you. So we know that some colleges are waiving ACT requirements for admissions. Do you believe some, or are you all waiving them for scholarships as well?
We're kind of set up to where we do have scholarships that we will take a look at the ACT, but we also have scholarships that are GPA driven, much like what Julie talked about with the University of North Alabama. So we're still set up to be that way. Certainly, there's not an ACT requirement for somebody to attend the college, although we do have some programs that do require an ACT score. If you're going to go into, as an example, our nursing program, you have to have an ACT score of at least an 18. And I don't foresee that being waived at all. It's similar for radiology and sonography. But other than that, most of our programs that a person has an opportunity to get involved with, that's really one of the things they really don't have to worry about is that ACT score, and thus really in a lot of ways that open enrollment that you see with the community colleges. And what I really do like about that is that, many of our students decide to transfer to like a UAB, to like a University of Alabama or UNA. And so when they have taken that 2 years to really build their GPA, the scholarships that they tend to receive transferring tend to be solely based on that GPA. Like a transfer scholarship that we're all familiar with in the state of Alabama, but something like Phi Theta Kappa, depending on what your GPA is, Phi Theta Kappa can be a very good scholarship to have when you're transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year college.
And I just want to add, we do have scholarships like our presidential and our academic and our dean scholarships. Those GPA requirements and ACT requirements are not being waived. But all the other scholarships that we offer a ton of them that do not require GPA or ACT scores. So I would just encourage them to continue just to check the website and see what updates and what ACT scores are going to be waived, and make sure that they still keep in contact with the admissions office and the financial aid office.
I wanted to add a quick point as well. So UA is test optional for the fall 2022 semester, and that is something that students will have to weigh the options for scholarships based on being test optional. The scholarships that we offer, there's a merit-based scholarship that is solely based on academic achievement, GPA and ACT, starting at a 21 on the ACT, going up to a 30 for tuition. The competitive scholarships are a more holistic view of the student. There are academic components, but there are certain ones that take leadership experience into consideration, volunteer experience, things like that. So when students are deciding whether or not they choose to be test optional or not, it's really going to be based on looking at our scholarship grid for the merit-based versus where they stand out on the resume portion, and just being sure that they look at it holistically, because there are scholarships out there that are not solely based on academic achievement. So that was just a little tidbit.
And thank you for that. That kind of segues perfectly into our next question. So this is going to be for Andrew. So if a student initially opts to submit their application as test optional, but then later decides they would like to submit their test scores, would this be acceptable? Will this cause any issues? And what's the process for that?
Yeah, so excellent question. At UAB, you do have the option of picking test optional or test inclusive at the very beginning of the application. But once your application is submitted, you are stuck with whatever option you chose. So you cannot change. You can absolutely send your test score if you are a test optional student, but we won't use that for admissions or scholarship consideration, at least at UAB. I can't necessarily speak for other universities on that stance as well.
Alabama is also the same. It is a binding decision, which one that the student chooses. If they go test optional, then that is binding. And then their test scores, they can continue to submit after the fact if they are not test optional. So.
And UAB is the same on that as well.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. UNA is a little bit different. We don't require that a student, we don't look at their ACT score for admission purposes. They're not penalized for submitting an ACT score, any student with a 3.0 or higher will automatically receive a scholarship. If they do submit an ACT score with the 20 or higher, we'll consider that for scholarship purposes.
Anybody else want to jump in? Okay, I didn't want to make sure I let everybody answer before I go to the next question. Thank you guys for those answers. So my next question is going to be for Taylor, and Taylor, this one's all about the FAFSA. So I just wanted to mention that our questions are coming from high school counselors and career coaches who are helping their students file their FAFSAs. And we know that there are going to be some changes to the FAFSA this year, this academic school year. And so Taylor, will you just highlight for us some of the key updates to the FAFSA for the 2022-23 FAFSA?
Yeah, sure. So two of the biggest updates, which can be kind of confusing, are going to be your selective service question as well as your drug conviction question. So both of those questions are going to remain on the FAFSA. So when you're filling out or your students are completing their 22-23 FAFSA, those two questions, selective service as well as drug conviction, will still be on the FAFSA, but they will no longer impact their eligibility. So if you do have a student who is not selected for or is not registered for selective service, they are not required any longer to register for selective service to receive aid. They are encouraged to register, but no longer required, as well as the drug conviction question. If there's a student who was convicted of selling or in possession of drugs while receiving federal aid, they will now be eligible to receive aid. So those are the two biggest changes, but those questions do remain as of right now. Come next year, I know this is a little early, but we are expecting even more changes to be made to the FAFSA for the next FAFSA cycle, but those are the two biggest for this year.
Thanks so much for that. Anna, I'm gonna throw it back to you. So what is the typical scholarship priority date? And so I think everyone might want to chime in here too as well, but we'll let Anna answer first.
Yes. So with Alabama having sort of three different scholarship categories, so to speak, the merit-based one, as I mentioned, is solely based on GPA and test score. If you have the certain GPA and the test score, that is automatically awarded. That priority deadline is January 15th. However, we will accept up through the February ACT for that. And I'm sorry, let me clarify. January 15th is for the student to be admitted to Alabama. That they have to have their application turned in, not on the 15th, because it can take some time for it to be reviewed and then be accepted. So they have to, I am telling students at least a month in advance from that January 15th deadline for the merit-based scholarships. But we will accept the February test score being the last test score for consideration to try and get a higher scholarship. Our competitive scholarships, the deadline for the priority deadline for that is December 15th, and the December test score being the last one for that. And our merit-based and competitive scholarships are on either or basis. Those two are not stackable. We will take whichever scholarship is higher that the student is awarded. And the competitive scholarship does incorporate test scores and academic GPA. However, like I said, it is a more holistic view, and there's a lot more scholarships to offer in that. And then we have a freshman supplemental scholarship application that is the third component, and those scholarships and departmental scholarships are stackable with the merit-based or the competitive, whichever one the student qualifies for. So the departmental scholarships can be stackable up to the value of cost of attendance at Alabama. And students can defer the scholarship money if they have extra. If they don't use every bit of it, they can defer it for study abroad or for graduate school at Alabama. And that application is not required. It's in their portal. They fill it out after they have been admitted to Alabama. So a lot of students don't realize that they have to fill that out separately because our initial scholarship application is included in the admissions application.
I'll chime in for UAB. We're fairly similar. Our priority deadline is March 1st for our merit-based scholarships. Once again, that does require a separate application via our BSmart system. So you need to be both admitted to UAB and have that Be Smart application submitted by that March 1st deadline. We do have some competitive departmental scholarships, which most of those deadlines are actually set on February 1st, so a little bit earlier, but it's through that same Be Smart system where you apply for those. We actually will start sending out official scholarship awards starting December 1st. So typically, if a student wants to know their financial aid packet a little bit earlier, I would suggest having everything completed as far as the Be Smart application goes by December 1st at the latest, so that way you can know typically by the holidays. One other thing I did want to point out as well too is that much like UNA and UA also mentioned, we do accept up to the February ACT or the March SAT score if you are applying with test scores included as well. And with our application, Be Smart, like I said, it does take both qualitative as well as quantitative information as well. And those scholarships would range from about $2,000 to $10,000 for merit-based scholarships for in-state students per year.
All right, my next question is for Julie. So are there any opportunities for additional scholarships to be stacked, such as departmental, endowed or foundational, or need-based, or any others?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, all of UNA's scholarships are stackable on top of each other. So our merit-based can stack with leadership, with club sports scholarships, like I mentioned at the beginning. We do have specific departmental scholarships. Yeah, so there are lots of ways, and everything at UNA will stack up to tuition fees, room and board, and also books. We have valedictorian, salutatorian scholarships, lots of different ways for students to, if they get their initial merit-based scholarship package, which they'll get after they're admitted to UNA, there still are other scholarships like endowed and other things that will stack on top.
All right, Victoria, I'm going to throw it back to you. Will academic scholarships be awarded to the students based on test scores they submitted when they applied for the scholarship? Or will the award amount be updated to match their highest score? And then this is a two-parter. If so, what is the deadline for submitting a higher score to make sure they have the highest test score on their application?
Okay, sure. Our academic scholarship requires an ACT score of 24 or higher. That score would determine if they receive the scholarship or not. We only have one amount that we award the students during that time. If they have, say for instance, if they have less than a 24, by the end of the academic year, they can resubmit their ACT score to be reconsidered for that scholarship. But our scholarships are not stackable. We only have two high school graduating senior scholarship. We have the presidential and the dean scholarship. The presidential scholarship cutoff score is 27. So if they have less than a 27, and by the end of the year, if they get the ACT scores up to a 27, they will receive the presidential. And they give them ample time to reapply as long as they meet that priority date of June 1st.
Perfect. So my next question is going to be for Carl. So Carl, can students use the Pell Grant towards certificates and credentials?
They can. It really depends on how the college has set up that opportunity. Pell Grant cannot be used for a credential if that credential is outside of a degree program. But I think one of the things that the community colleges have done a very good job in is they've been able to embed most of those credentials within a degree program. So as long as that student has been able to select a degree program, and within that degree program is able to attain a certificate or a credential, Pell Grant will pay for that. A good example of that would be like our salon and spa program. We have a degree program within salon and spa, but you can certainly go through that program and become certified in salon and spa. But what one would do is they would initially make sure that they're enrolled for that degree program, allowing them to use their Pell Grant to attain, that credential.
Hey, I would like to add just a little bit to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
All of our colleges are approved for different programs throughout the state. So each Pell eligible program will vary through, from college to college. And we do offer, so kind of the way it's listed is the student will see short certificate, long certificate, and degree program. A lot of our short certificates are not eligible. They just don't meet the length required by Department of Education to be Pell eligible, but most of the long certificates do, and all of our degree programs. So it just depends on how the college sets it up, but there are some long certificates, which are usually a year in length, that do qualify for Pell Grant, even though they're not embedded into that degree program.
Yeah, and also here at Bishop, we have our health information technology program, and we have a lot of students that wants the medical coding of that program. And that program, the medical coding, they can receive that short-term certificate within 2 semesters. So what we try to do here is encourage them to go ahead and apply for the Health Information Associates of Technology program for 2 years, where medical code is embedded in that program. So those stackable credentials are so important when students come in, and nail technology. Now a truck driving program is just a short-term certificate program. They cannot get FAFSA, they can't get Pell for that program. But a lot of our other programs, I guess when they apply to the college, at that time, the advisor will instruct them on exactly what they need to do in order to be Pell eligible for that particular program.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to add one more thing. Even though some of our programs are not Pell eligible, we also have WIOA funding available for students. So we at the community college have several different funding avenues that we can help students, even if their program's not Pell eligible, to pay for their education cost.
Taylor, I think that's a great point, because I think a lot of people miss the fact that a lot of these students in high school, are eligible for the WIOA. And sometimes that's just not something that's, made aware of as much as, pursuing, the FAFSA route, that Pell route. So I think that's an excellent point.
I had a related point with the Pell Grant. We have it's called the Alabama Advantage Scholarship, and it is for any student who qualifies for the full Pell Grant. The scholarship, the Alabama Advantage Scholarship, will fund the remaining dollars to cover the cost of UA's in-state tuition. So that is something that students need to know. If they do qualify for that full Pell Grant, there is an additional scholarship for them. And the requirements are to be enrolled in 12 semester credit hours and maintain a 2.0 in their college work.
All right, my next question is going to be for Andrew. So are merit-based scholarships automatically awarded based off of a student's academic profile, or is there a separate application that has to be submitted?
So in years past, yes, UAB did do automatic scholarships, but this is actually the first year we've switched to this new system, which does require that separate application on BSmart. And it would take into account that personal statement as well as the student's academic information. So their GPA, if they're just test optional, but their GPA and test scores if they applied with test scores in consideration.
Did anyone else want to add to that before I go to the next question? I want to make sure. Okay. So my next question is for Taylor. So Taylor, can you help us understand the difference between a FAFSA submitted and a FAFSA completed, if there is a difference between the two?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So there is definitely a difference between the two, and a couple of things. So like a submitted FAFSA just means that you've submitted. It hasn't gone through all the verification side. And I don't mean verification by like taxes or everything, but like the Social Security Administration check, all of that is when you submit. Now completed, it is completed once all the socials check out, parents sign, students sign, all of that. So and the on our side term, it's called a rejected ICER, meaning that it's not completed, meaning there's something the student will have to do, whether it's sign the FAFSA, maybe a social security number doesn't match a name, but entered on the FAFSA. So there is a difference, and the FAFSA must be completed in order to be processed for federal financial aid. But we can, if a student gets notification that there's something missing or their FAFSA is just submitted but not completed, all they have to do is reach out to the financial aid department for which code, the school code they listed on their FAFSA, and they can let them know what is needed to be completed.
Thank you so much. So this is going to be my last question from my list, and then we're going to turn over to the questions that we got from our attendees and participants. So my last question is going to be for Julie. Does your college require FAFSA completion to be considered for institutional aid?
I'm sure this is going to be different, but at UNA, we do not require a FAFSA for scholarship purposes.
UAB also does not require scholarship or FAFSA for scholarship purposes.
Alabama does not either, with the exception of that Alabama Advantage Scholarship that I mentioned. They do have to be Pell Grant, full Pell Grant eligible for that, but all merit-based, competitive, and departmental scholarships do not require.
We do require it at a bishop. You have to have a FAFSA on file. You don't necessarily have to qualify, but you have to have one on file.
We're the same as what Ms. Perry just shared at Northwest Shoals.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to get into the questions from our attendees today. So our first question comes from Vicki Lewis. She was just asking, is there a link that hosts all of the scholarships for your institutions? Also, are they listed on the homepage so that the students can choose which ones they should apply for? And let me repeat the first one because I think I might have misunderstood. So is there a magic web link that hosts all scholarships available? If you all know about it, please let us know so we can let the students know. But then at your individual college, do you have them all grouped together?
We do not have a central location for all schools. The one thing I did want to say is to caution students about paying for services for scholarship searches, because a lot of like if you do a quick Google search, there are apps and things that will pop up that they can pay a fee, and they're told that, that would be beneficial, but at the same time, I always caution students against paying for scholarship search or to get scholarships.
All right, so I have another question. So this person says they have several undocumented students enrolled in their school system. What does the application process look like for those students?
So for students who are undocumented, typically, especially if they are part of the DREAMER program, we would require them to provide their I-797 immigration documentation in place of any kind of like visa or anything like that. And so beyond that, their application process would be virtually the same of providing their school information, transcript, basic application, things like that.
Did anyone else have to add to that question?
I'll add a little bit from the financial aid side of undocumented students. Most of the time, undocumented students are not eligible for federal financial aid. There are some circumstances where they might be, depending upon their status, depending upon they have a green card. There's just different scenarios there. So if you do have an undocumented student or are undocumented students, I highly recommend you reaching out to your local financial aid director and letting them talk with that student, parent, and let's see what we can do to help them get some funding for their education.
Thank you so much for that. So that was our last question. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, your answers. We will be sending out the recording of this presentation to everyone who registered, as well as everyone who is here. I do have a survey link for those who are here and who was able to enjoy it. So I'm sending it now. If you could take the moment to just fill out the survey, we would appreciate it. This will help us make all our webinars better and make sure they're helping you and supporting you and your students.